Thunderbolts was the most anticipated Marvel film this year, but now that it's finally out, is it as good as we originally thought it would be? Stop, because before we continue there are some very obvious spoiler warnings for this video. If you have not watched Thunderbolts, please do watch another video. It's pretty easy to say that Thunderbolts feels a lot like old school Marvel. The humour and the throwback to some pretty iconic scenes, it just feels right. But there is something different. The asterisk in Thunderbolts was always such a huge debate with this film on what it means and most importantly what it's for. And now we know. The new Avengers. After only a few days of the film being out in cinemas, Marvel released it to the world. I mean, I saw it in cinemas on release day, so I didn't really care that much. No one knows if this is what the film's going to be called on streaming services or if it's still going to be called Thunderbolts, but it's looking pretty good for the future of Marvel so far. The entire plot for this film is about a group of anti-heroes who at first are all set to kill each other, but instead they're being plotted against. And this is where they meet Bob, who's supposed to be dead and in typical Marvel fashion, he's been previously tested on. He's a little delirious and he's a bit confusing at first, but he's still an extremely lovable character. I mean, look at him. Anyway, it appears that Bob was a part of a failed project called Project Sentry, and after a bit of meddling from Valentina, he turns into the Void. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Whose design is absolutely insane, by the way, and definitely gave him the shivers in the cinema. Anyway, long story short, they're all a new team, and Alexei calls them Thunderbolts.
We are the Thunderbolts!
Can't call ourselves that.
God, thank you.
And yes, Yelena is the main character in this story. It's quite nice to see the story of how she's doing since losing her sister and getting out of the Red Room. Now knowing that she's still working as an assassin for Valentina, but she's kind of sick of doing it. She wants to now be in the public eye, and who can blame her? She just wants to be like her big sister after all. Yelena's character development is just so interesting to me, but it's so fun to look into. Her story is so fun and it will continue to be now that she's a part of the new Avengers, a brand new hero team that children will look up to. So in the end, she kind of became what she hated. However, she does get to be like her big sister, and I think in some ways it is really nice. Her character has definitely become a favourite for me over the last few cameos in Marvel, and now that she's finally main character to a film, it's just great. She's a really fun and sarcastic character, but also a total badass, and you really can't help but love her.
Well, I'd like not to die today, so maybe somebody else should be driving.
Even John Walker was a character I somehow enjoyed in this film. He was so hateable in Falcon and Winter Soldier for very obvious reasons, but this film was almost a redemption arc for him. We really got to see him in such a vulnerable state. We felt sorry for him and actually grew to love him. Especially since we learn about his past and his mistakes in parenting and his relationship, makes us feel almost sorry for him. The hate he was getting from other characters in this film was honestly pretty funny at first, but I actually began to really like him as a character. He seems to really care about Bob in the end as well, and his everlasting banter with all the other characters was so amusing and really kept the film alive. Safe to say him and Alexei were a bit of that old Marvel comic relief in the film that we miss so much. Speaking of Alexei, I absolutely adored him in Black Widow. He was fantastically funny and still badass, and you could really see it in him that he wanted to be a good guy. Even when he did save that little girl, it was so heartwarming and nice to see, even if the scene was pretty dark and the girl did just disappear. Also, seeing Alexei pushing and screaming for Yelena as she steps into the Void is so heartbreaking. Even the fact that it took 2 super soldiers to hold him back from rescuing his daughter. And since midway through the film we see that he hadn't actually been the greatest father to Yelena, especially when she needed him the most. But I think he turned himself around pretty quickly and definitely for the better. Taskmaster could have been such an interesting storyline in this film, and after seeing that she could have had memory loss and would have constantly gone off to Walker, would have just been so funny and exactly the humour that we would have wanted. It was such a huge waste killing her off so soon, especially since escaping from her father's grasp in Black Widow and realising just how powerful she can and could have been. I just really wish we saw more of her in this film, especially with her brand new look. Ghost was always such a fun character for me. Her humour and her sarcasm mixed with Yelena's really carried this film in some ways. The constant randomly leaving and then returning to save everyone, I have to admit, was actually pretty fun. She was so incredible in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and we hadn't seen her in so long, so I think Thunderbolts was brilliant with bringing her back in the way that they did. Bucky deserved his role in this film so much, going from being a congressman to then just kind of dipping into anti-hero-ness to finally being the hero. This has all been so long awaited, especially since he's been in all phases of Marvel now, and him just being an incredibly iconic character and hugely loved within the community. There's honestly not much I can say about Bucky because of just how genuinely loved he is as a character. If I were to list off everything that he's done which is cool, we'd be here a long time. Bob is honestly just a genuinely fun character and easily fits in well with the team with his humour and how genuinely likeable he is as a character. He's so important to this film and the future of Marvel, especially since he's now the most strongest character we've met, but also incredibly twisted. I'll be honest, at first I laughed when I saw him come out in a bright yellow suit and blonde hair. I just thought he looked really stupid. But it was also impressive to see the Sentry in action. Even when he turned into the Void, I thought I was going to start violently shaking from fear. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who freaked out when I first saw him as the Void. Seeing how extremely powerful he was to turn an entire city into a complete shadow, forcing everyone to live in their fears and horrors, let's just say he's pretty scary. Only for all the heroes to be trapped in the Void as they face horrible visions of their past selves and confront their deepest fears. They realise that their greatest challenge isn't defeating some villain like Sentry, it's saving Bob from himself. From the guilt, regret, and power that threatens to consume him completely, together they fight not just to escape the Void, but to bring Bob back before it's too late. Well yeah, but it's too friendship is magic. Yeah, good. Marvel for a long while has always been about who's more powerful or who's more smart to defeat the villain, but it's never really been about the character's emotions. Sure, we saw how Clint struggled with the loss of his family, or seeing how Tony struggled after the Battle of New York, even going as far to see Peter missing Tony after his death, but we never got a whole film of it. This film focused so much on the emotions of the characters, it's enough to bring you in even more and become so attached to the characters, Bob especially. You feel so sorry for this character that you've never met, wanting to free him from his own darkness and nightmares, even seeing Elena outright admitting she's been struggling since the loss of her sister and almost losing herself, claiming she just sits at home, scrolls on her phone. It's all in all a really gut-wrenching film when you properly look into it. Understanding the film for what it is, Marvel really did work hard on this film and the outcome was phenomenal. I mean, let's not even begin to talk about the parallels from old films, starting from On Your Left and then the boost given to Elena, which was previously a move done by Natasha and Steve. Such a small, meaningful parallel to older fans. Some of the characters now giving me throwbacks to some of the old characters such as Bob and Elena remind me so much of Clint and Natasha. It's just so refreshing to see. The cast are also so fantastic together. There's that old relationship between all the cast that we felt only 10 years ago. The humour and the silliness between all of them is so entertaining. It's so fun seeing an entire cast work well together on and off set. It just shows how much the cast love their roles in the films that they star in. I mean, do we really need to say much about the post-credit scene? It was pretty fantastic. It makes me even more excited for the films that are due to come. And obviously the very obvious Sam and Bucky breakup arc. I'm kidding, mostly. But there's clearly some issues going on with the Avengers, the new Avengers, and the young Avengers. I don't know, it's all just kind of confusing to me. Also, Lewis had mentioned in an interview about in the film somewhere either him or Florence have done a baby rock hand sign. So has anyone found it yet? Or